My name is Megan Minardi, and I'm going to present the strategy of the double entry diary. This comprehension strategy focuses on multiple comprehension processes that readers use. Effective readers make sense of their reading as they are reading. You double check your understanding, but at the same time you're pulling your thoughts together so that you're summarizing the general idea of the passage while drawing conclusions and making generalizations. You are thinking of how the text connects to and extends your background knowledge. You think about questions that are not yet answered as you wonder about what you've read. Most importantly, you are most aware of the what of reading, what it's about, what's important, what needs to be remembered, and what you're going to do with the information. But at the same time, your mind is also involved in the how of reading. It's ongoing thinking you must do to get at the what. Strategies which prompt this kind of thinking and encourage students to notice how they are reading can strengthen their comprehension abilities as they tackle the various texts for classroom learning. Many times, students are often unaware of their thinking as they read, especially the thinking that can guide and enhance their comprehension. The double entry diary encourages students to think about their thinking because it enables them to record their responses to a text as they are reading. Research shows students have difficulty engaging in a text, especially when it's nonfiction, and forming meaningful connections while they are reading. Reading comprehension can be very difficult if students aren't interested or they simply do not know how to form those connections. Utilizing the double entry diary allows students to become actively involved with the text while expressing their thoughts. Like I said, it could be used with fiction or nonfiction, and it prompts students to utilize essential comprehension behaviors while they are reading. This strategy can be especially beneficial for when you are reading a text that's in a book that you are not able to write in. Setup is pretty easy. You can have students take a piece of paper and fold it in half vertically to form two columns, or you can create a chart that's blank and then laminate it so students can write on it with a dry erase marker. You can provide them with a worksheet that they fill in. You could have them do it right in one of their journals, so if you keep a reading log or a journal. In my classroom, I have students use sticky notes while we are reading, and in the beginning of the year, what I would do is, as we were reading together, I would stop and say, this quote that we just read is really important. Why do you think that this quote is important for our understanding of the text? I would stop and have students write why they feel that quote is important on the sticky note and put it right into the textbook. Then the next day or later on that day, I would have students then go back, look at their reactions and their thoughts, and record the information onto something similar, a chart that I've provided for them. On the left side of the column, this is going to be information from the text. It's going to be a short passage or quote, facts, or a summary of a portion of the text. On the right side, it's going to be information from students' mind. It's going to be a written response that corresponds directly with whatever is written on the left. The result is a series of important textual references and the students' personal reactions and their connections to them. The column on the right side can be changed to focus on one specific comprehension behavior that you're focusing on in your classroom. So if you're focusing on making connections, the title of the right side would be "This Reminds Me Of," and students would record their reactions to whatever quote or passage that you've put on the left side and what it reminded them of. You can change it to, if you're focusing on making inferences, to I figured out that, and students would take the text on the left side and make an inference and show you what they inferred by using that quote. Students will best benefit from this strategy if it's modeled in the beginning. So in the beginning, you will want to provide the passage or quote or key event on the left for them. It could be something where you have already typed up multiple ones, and so students just need to stop as they're reading when they get to that quote. Or if you're doing it together as a class, you could have a completely blank column on the left and then stop and say, this quote right here is important. Let's go ahead and write it down on the left and tell me what your reaction is. Once students become more comfortable with using this strategy and the different comprehension processes, they can actually use something called content process notes to utilize multiple comprehension strategies at once. This strategy is a natural extension of the strategy of text coding. The setup looks really similar to the double entry diary. On the left side, students will record what they learned or the content directly from the text. They will track key information directly from the text, and the left side once again focuses on words from the author. On the right side, students will write what their thinking is, or the process part. This is the side where they record their text coding. It focuses on the reader, and it shows the variety of thinking that occurs to individual readers, which gives you as a teacher insight into the processes that are going through students' minds as they are reading. Content process notes help students keep track of what they judge to be key ideas and facts while logging some of their thinking. Here are some examples of the double entry diary. This example is taken from the Buehl text, and it's from a history teacher. She was modeling to students how to use this strategy to help make connections. She pulled a quote directly from the text and made a personal connection to the quote from the text. While she was providing her connection, she was modeling to students how her background knowledge has connected directly to a text account of a historical event, but most importantly, she focused on how it helped her understand the event and how by having a personal connection to the text, it makes it more meaningful to her. Proficient readers are constantly seeking to use their personal knowledge to help them make sense of new information, so it's crucial as teachers for us to model to students not only how to make that connection, but why the connection is beneficial. This is an example of utilizing the double entry diary in math class. So many times in my classroom, I teach students a new strategy or steps for solving a mathematical equation. We did long division, and there's a fun acronym for students to memorize the steps of dividing longer numbers. And students were able to tell me what that was before they started or even write it on their paper. But so many times I found as they were going through the steps, they would make almost silly mistakes because they were trying to go so fast they weren't actually thinking of those steps. So to utilize the double entry diary for mathematical equations on the left side, you would write the equation and solve it on the left side, but instead of going through and just solving it, each time the students do a part of the step on the left side, they then write down what they were thinking on the right. So it forces students to stop and think about what they are doing and how they are doing it. This is an example of utilizing the double entry diary with a literature piece of text. This is from the Percy Jackson book. And the quote on the left is directly from the text, and it shows the page number and the exact paragraph so that when students are having a group discussion, they can go back and find exactly where they were referring to. And on the right, it shows students recording. With practice, students can begin to use the double entry diary as a method of tracking their thinking. You can have students do this with partners or in small groups so that they can construct meaning from difficult materials. And you should encourage students to use this strategy when they struggle with especially challenging text and as a study technique for when they are studying for different exams. Some advantages of using the double entry diary strategy in your classroom is student engagement. Students become active thinkers as they are reading, and they are reminded of the comprehension strategies such as accessing their prior knowledge, clarifying questions, and finding the most important information. Using the double entry diary, students begin to assume personal responsibility for their understanding. They use the variety of comprehension processes to make sense of what you are doing in class. Students can also use the double entry diary to clarify or reflect on their personal understanding of a text. Students use their written record of their thinking to go back and look and see what is maybe a part they didn't quite understand, and they can address that with you or maybe a peer, or even it could be something where they then at the end go back and clarify it for themselves. As a teacher, you can also use this as an informal assessment of different areas of comprehension that students may be struggling with. Another advantage of utilizing the double entry diary is its encouragement of metacognition. Students are writing what they are thinking, so it shows their thinking processes as they read, which is very beneficial to us as teachers because so many times as students are reading, you can see that they are reading, they're focused, but at the end they come up with a completely off the wall response. And so by having them write their thinking, it gives you insights into what's going on and why they're not coming up with necessarily the same conclusion that you had expected them to. You can also then use the student's double entry diary to either redirect or encourage the thought processes that students are having. Most importantly, double entry diaries show students that comprehension is a dynamic process that combines what an author offers with what a reader brings to the text. So many times students just fly through a passage or chapter that you have asked them to read, and when they're done reading, they can't recall anything that happens in the text because they have not made that personal connection. And so by having students visually show that their thoughts are directly connected to things that are happening in the text, they're making those meaningful connections, which allows them to go deeper into the text.